Chapter 3. Normal is hard to find. The next day morning, Ethan was still unable to hear any birds. He opened the window and saw the sun was about to rise. Things did not turn back to normal. Looking out the window, he could see his neighbours meditating. All of them, whom he had never seen wake up early, were sitting on the floor with their eyes closed, focusing on their breathing, with their hands resting on their thighs, palm facing up, with the fingers relaxed. Except for one, a small boy who was chaotically walking on the street with his hands raised. He moved away from the window just when he realized that the boy's movements did not seem to be controlled. He returned to look through the window but could not find the boy. He could have joined the others to meditate, or could have gone in search of the boy to clarify his doubt, but his heart and mind were not willing to. He did his daily chores and went downstairs to see his parents just wrapping up their meditation and stretching their muscles. His parents still had their hands raised. He was sitting on the couch in his living room, not knowing what to do that day. He lost the belief that he would be able to find someone normal like him. He did not have the nerve to visit Lily's house as he was already recovering from the events of the previous night, especially because he thought that the universe did not want them to end up together. This thought appeared in his mind because the universe did not even let him look at Lily's smile again. His breakfast was ready, but today he did not want his mother to get up from her chair during her breakfast to get a glass of water for him. As soon as he emptied the glass of water, he went to the kitchen to fetch water. After breakfast, he went to his room to think about what he could be doing that day. His deep thought was distracted by a sound. It was a familiar sound, and he had heard it every day except the previous day. It was the barking of a dog. He heard it at a distance, and he immediately peeked out of his window to look for the dog, except it was not one dog, but many. The dogs were all being taken for a walk on the street by their owners. The dogs were acting a bit unusual. It seemed like they were distracted for a moment, then kept trying to listen to something in constant intervals, and then moving forward. It appeared as though someone gave them instructions about what needed to be done and where they needed to go, but were unable to control them for an extended period. The human owners held onto the harness, just in case the dogs did not listen and went wild. Ethan ran downstairs and noticed a couple of bicycles parked in front of each house. Beside his bicycle, he saw another one parked. He did not know to whom the bicycle belonged, but it was not new. It looked like it was years old. Not only were there bicycles, but in front of some houses, he saw human-operable rickshaws and skateboards. He simply noticed that none of the vehicles had an engine and had to be operated with the help of humans. Everything needed to be physically driven by humans with their physical movement. Ethan stood there wondering what all this was about. He wondered if God was doing this because he had heard his prayers about saving the environment, to make a better and cleaner world for the next generations to come. He shifted his focus onto the dogs and noticed that it was not only dogs but all other pets as well. Pet cats were being carried by the owners themselves in their arms. Pet birds were still being carried in their cages. People who had many pets were carrying only one or two of their pets, and the others were being carried by their neighbours who did not own a pet. All the caged pet animals and birds were being gathered at a point at the end of each street. The pets were being loaded into several pushing carts. The carts were being loaded with caged animals and birds in a way to make sure that the pets did not hurt each other. Ethan noticed that the pets in his neighbourhood that had separation anxiety and could not stay calm while being away from their owners were being carried in their owners' arms instead of being loaded into the cart. This would help them keep their pets relaxed. Each cart was being gently pulled by a person making sure the pets were not traumatized further. All the people, including Ethan's father, began to walk in a particular direction. Thomas took the bicycle that was parked beside Ethan's bicycle, along with another bicycle that was in their neighbour's house. Instead of riding, his father walked between the two bicycles, pushing them forward. He noticed a similar pattern among others as well. Some were carrying two skateboards in their hands. Ethan was curious to know where everyone was heading with their pets. He took his bicycle and began following them. They walked for nearly 2 hours and reached their neighbouring town, Cudham. People from that town were all waiting with their hands raised. They all greeted the people from Ethan's town. The pet owners then distributed each of their pets to everyone in that town and returned to their homes. Ethan understood the reason for people carrying 2 skateboards and pushing 2 bicycles instead of riding them. It was for the person carrying the pets and walking with the pets to return to their homes faster. But the only thing that Ethan was not sure about was the reason why every pet from their town was being transferred to this neighbouring town. Suddenly a person collided with Ethan's arm, while Ethan was simply standing in the middle of the busy street. Ethan turned to look at that person, but he could not properly see that person's face. He figured it was a girl and seemed like she was moving in a hurry. Ethan did not realize soon enough that the person was moving in a rush without her hands being raised. Ethan had not seen anyone in a hurry the previous day. He realized that she could be normal and quickly skimmed through the crowd of people walking across the street. He found the girl at a distance and began moving towards her. He could not run initially, as there were people in between, but soon the people stood aside to make way for him. It gave him an advantage to run and catch up with the girl faster. He followed her for a while, but she suddenly disappeared into the crowd. He could not find her, as the crowd with their hands raised was easily blocking his vision. He thought he could get into a taller building to look around, which could give him an advantage in searching for the girl. He looked around for a taller building and, to his surprise, saw the girl he was looking for, peeking through a building's window. She did not have her hands raised but looked tense and was searching for something. Ethan felt happy to realize that he had found someone who was normal. The girl looked worried. Ethan could know that from her sad facial reactions and the way she was mouthing some words and looking around eagerly. In her search, she did not notice Ethan standing among the people walking with their hands raised, but Ethan could see her face. He felt goosebumps on his hands and head as the girl strongly resembled his long-lost, presumed deceased sister. His mind told him that she was not his sister, but his heart felt that she was. His eyes filled with tears as he said, "Emily." He ran towards the building and went upstairs. The girl was still looking out the window. She turned to look at Ethan as she heard his footsteps. Ethan was very happy, and tears of happiness began flowing from his eyes as he saw his sister standing in front of him. Words struggled to come out of his mouth. The girl, too, seemed happy to see him, a normal person. But with no time to express her happiness, she asked for help to search for a boy in the crowd with short blonde hair who also was normal. Ethan did not have time to think about anything at that moment, other than to search for that boy his sister was looking for. He peeked out of the window to see if he could see anyone with the identification his sister had mentioned. He thought that it would be a waste of time if they were both looking through the same window. So he decided to go to the terrace of the building to look for that boy. But they could not find that boy with the short blonde hair. He returned to his sister, who was sitting on the floor, weeping. Ethan tried consoling her, but she did not seem to be hearing Ethan's words. Ethan felt that she might not have recognized him, but he did not want to ask her about his doubts at that time. His sister could not stop crying. Ethan sat on the stairs wondering what he could be doing to calm his sister down. After a while, 2 girls about the same age as his sister came upstairs. One of them was carrying a red thin cloth made of cotton, and the other was carrying a small brown-coloured puppy. Ethan made way for them to walk up the stairs, and they went to his sister. They handed the puppy and the red cloth to her and made her stand up. They hugged her to console her. They began humming a melody that seemed to have made his sister better. When his sister stopped crying and focused on taking care of the puppy, the 2 girls left with their hands raised. She looked at Ethan and said, "It is good to see a person who is able to speak. My name is Annabel." Ethan was shocked to hear her say her name was Annabel. He became emotional, unable to process that she could not be his sister. He asked, "Annabel? But how could this be possible?" he thought. He found it difficult to talk as he was controlling himself not to cry. Annabel saw the struggle in Ethan and asked him if he was all right. Ethan was unable to answer her question. She thought that it was due to her recent crying and broken state that was making Ethan feel sad. She said, "Oh, please don't mind my crying. Somehow deep down I felt that this would happen to me one day. I just did not expect that it would be this quick. But I'm very happy that the universe did not leave me to handle it by myself. I thank the universe for sending you here. It is good to have someone to talk to when you are in pain. Oh, sorry. I have been talking about myself for a while. I forgot to ask your name." Ethan struggled but managed to say his name out loud, and then he asked, "Do you not remember me?" Annabel looked at Ethan and tried to recollect if she had seen him anywhere, but as she could not, she answered, "No." Ethan asked her if she could show her right elbow. Annabel wondered why he asked her to show him her elbow as she showed her elbow to him. Ethan looked at her elbow and with tears in his eyes he said, "You are my sister, Emily. I remember the scar very well. I still remember the day you got that scar. You fell on a rock while I was chasing you when we were young. The same scar in the same place. I can surely say that you are my sister. My sister, the river wanted to make part of itself when she was 5 years old. My sister, whom we assumed to be dead, though we could not find the body. But somehow, deep in my heart, I knew that you were still alive." Annabel said, "You must have mistaken me for someone else, Ethan. My name is not Emily, it is Annabel, and I surely did not get this scar from falling on rocks. I got this when I was 10 years old. I fell unconscious as I ran into a tree when I was being chased by a group of dogs. That is how I got this scar." Ethan could not believe his eyes and ears. He said, "How can there be another girl in this world who looks exactly like my mother when she was in her 20s, has my father's eyes and has the same scar as my sister? And she too would have been your age now if she had not drowned." Ethan further began asking about her childhood. From what Annabel said, Ethan figured that she was from that part of the town to which the pets were being given and had never been outside of that town. He wanted to know more about her family, so he asked her if he could meet them one day. Annabel said, "Yes, sure, I do not have much to do today. Frankly, I do not know what to do today. I had some places to visit with Marcus, but as he is gone, I am not sure I can visit that place all by myself. It wouldn't make sense. There is nothing interesting for me to do today. So, if you are free, we can visit my family today. At least I will have someone to talk to for the rest of my day." Ethan immediately accepted her invitation, and they went to Annabel's house. Meanwhile, some of the people from Ethan's town began returning to their town after leaving their pets in that town. Ethan wanted to show Emily to his father, but he was nowhere to be seen. They both looked around to see the people of Annabel's town taking care of the pets of Ethan's town. They both wondered about the possible reason for the transfer of the pets from one town to another. As they walked towards Annabel's house, Ethan asked worriedly, "What do you think is happening around us?" Annabel admitted, "I have no clue, but it's really scary." Ethan pondered, "I'm curious why only the pets are being moved from Mandruk to Kudum." Annabel said, "I hope nothing worse happens. I can't handle too much sadness all at once." Ethan said, "I feel the same way." Annabel inquired, "Are you the only normal person from your town?" Ethan nodded sadly, replying, "Yeah, it's been pretty lonely." Annabel sympathetically responded, "That must have been really hard for you. At least I had Marcus beside me." Ethan inquired about the boy with the short blonde hair. He wanted to know about Marcus as he was normal, but ultimately he wanted to know about the person his sister's heart had bonded with love. Asking about him made her sad, but she managed to tell him about Marcus. Annabel said, "Marcus and I met last year in my college. We felt a deep connection between us. I can't explain the connection. It was like magic. But as time passed, he was not acting like his actual self. He often did not remember what he was doing. He just woke up from his sleep and wandered around the streets at night. When everyone began walking with their hands raised, he said he was hearing a voice and claimed that it was calling him to do evil things. He also disclosed that he had been hearing voices in his head for a long time. Usually they were soft and soothing, but this time he said it was a different voice, forceful and angrier. Up until last night, we checked every house in Kudum, but we didn't find anyone acting normally. We decided to visit Mandruk to see if its people also had their hands raised. It was almost midnight when we were heading to your town. A mysterious light guided us, and we stumbled upon a place where we witnessed something marvelous. Words cannot describe it. It was an experience that can only be truly understood by seeing it for yourself. At that spot he seemed greatly disturbed. He began dancing strangely, and fear gripped me as I watched his ferocious movements. His face was contorted with anger, his eyes blazing with fury. It was an intensity of emotion that I had never seen in him before. After a while, the ferocity of his dance began to subside, and he transitioned into a slower, more graceful rhythm. His expression softened, and his eyes regained their familiar warmth. The latter part of his dance was a thing of beauty to watch. I attempted to speak to him, but it was as if he couldn't hear me. It was as though I were invisible to him. I stood there, feeling utterly helpless, unsure of what to do next. Suddenly his anger peaked and he began his ferocious dance. And then he collapsed to the ground, unable to bear the pain in his head. He was fighting against the voice. It was agonizing to watch him twitch on the ground. The only help I could offer was to carry him away from that place. I brought him back to our town where he found some relief, and the voice began to diminish. He slept through the night, but I couldn't. I dozed off for a bit early in the morning. When I woke up, he was gone, and the people from your town started visiting ours with their pets. On seeing his sister cry, the brother in Ethan whom he had forgotten wanted to express his support in the most amazing way possible. He wanted to take all the problems from her life and carry them on his shoulders. But as he was not an expressive person, he just said, "Things will get better." When they were just about to enter Annabel's house, they heard a loud noise. It was from the direction of Ethan's town. Also, it was where Annabel had seen Marcus' head. Both of them knew that it was not a usual sound. They knew that it had come from quite a distance. The sound was not the only unusual thing that was happening. All the people around stopped for a second, and their facial reactions showed that they were all in shock. The shock among the people did not last for very long. After 5 seconds, they all went back to their state as before. Annabel did not find the people's shock out of context, considering their recent behavior. She was more focused on the sound and was thinking if Marcus had something to do with it. Ethan had not seen such a change in reaction among the people. Whatever happened the previous day, until that moment was predicted, and the actions were already in place. So the change in the reaction among the people caused a question in Ethan's mind. If all the people were under the control of someone who knows and controls everything, then could the shock among the people mean that someone or something is acting without the knowledge of the one in control? At that time, it did not seem to be important to visit Annabel's parents. It felt important to investigate the sound. What or who could have caused it? Ethan and Annabel got on their bicycles and began riding in the direction from where the sound came from. They travelled for a long time, but could not find any clue about the source of the sound. On their way, Annabel showed him a big tree standing alone in an open field. She pointed to the north of the lone tree and said that the place where Marcus did his weird dance was just a few meters from that tree. Ethan began to wonder if the marvelous place his sister mentioned could be connected to the strange sound. He was on the verge of asking his sister to take him to the spot where Marcus had danced, but his thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of a bicycle bell. They saw a person ringing his bicycle bell and beckoning them to follow him on his way towards Ethan's town. This person happened to be the last one returning to Mandruk after leaving his pet at Annabel's town. Hoping that following this person would help them unravel the mystery of the sound, they decided to accompany him. However, their search yielded no clues about the source of the sound. They simply followed the person back to Mandruk. Ethan thought that the reason the man asked them to follow him to his town could be because the one in control wanted his sister to return to her parents. As they were already in Mandruk, he thought of bringing his sister back to his home. As it was already time for lunch, he insisted, "Emily, would you allow me to take out one single problem from your mind?" Annabel asked, "What is it about you referring to me as Emily?" Ethan thought in his mind, "You are Emily, you just have forgotten that bit." But he did not say it out loud as he was tired and hungry and did not want to argue about it. So instead he said, "No, I was talking about food. The sun is at its peak. I am already very tired. Shall we go home for lunch?" Annabel initially hesitated, but she could not avoid the kind invitation from Ethan. So she decided to go with him. Ethan said, "I am just wondering if your parents are aware of you having lunch at my home. I do not want them to be waiting for your arrival." Annabel said, "I don't think that would be a problem. I'm sure they would not be worried if I did not show up for lunch because they know that I would be safe. They raised me as an independent girl and know I can handle things on my own. I'm fine with eating my leftover lunch for dinner if my family has prepared it. I do not like wasting food." Ethan felt that Annabel had misunderstood the context of his question, so he asked for reassurance. "I just did not want your parents to wait for your arrival to eat their lunch. Something similar happened here yesterday." Annabel asked, "Yesterday? Why? What happened yesterday?" Ethan said, "Yesterday my parents waited for me to eat the food before they began. Didn't it happen to you?" Annabel responded, "Really, I didn't notice that. I had been in shock all day, mostly searching the town with Marcus, so I might have missed it." Ethan reflected, "I guess we probably shouldn't worry too much about it, especially with everything that's been happening lately and people being aware of what's coming next. I hope they're already aware of this change of plans by now." Both Annabel and Ethan arrived at Ethan's house. As expected, Ethan's parents seemed to know about Annabel's arrival, and they welcomed Annabel with a tight hug. Their faces were filled with happiness, with tears of happiness flowing from his mother's eyes as she kissed Annabel on her forehead. These gestures made Annabel wonder if she really was Emily. But deep down she could not accept that she was Emily. Ethan was certain that Annabel was Emily, but he hesitated to impose the truth on his sister, as he feared that forcing the truth on her might cause her to reject it. So he decided to give it some time. Everyone settled to have lunch, but his parents were waiting for Emily to begin her meal. While eating, Ethan's mother had tears in her eyes. Ethan thought that some dust might have fallen into his mother's eyes, but Annabel felt there was something more to the tears. After lunch, Annabel asked Ethan, "You called me Emily when you saw me for the first time. Does she look like me?" Ethan was about to explain to her that she was Emily, but he felt that Annabel might not be ready to accept the fact that she is Emily. "So," he said, "as I told you, the possibility of two people looking alike with the same age and the same scar is very rare. So I consider you as my sister, Emily, and it's not going to change until someone proves that you are not my sister." Annabel said, "I could see it in your parents' eyes. They see me as their daughter. I am so sorry for your sister. If she is still alive, I hope she will be reunited with your family soon." Ethan thought to himself, "She is, and she has already been reunited with her family, and I am looking at her." Ethan's parents left the two of them and retired to their room to rest. Ethan and Emily found themselves restricted from leaving the house. Every time they attempted to step outside, someone seemingly appeared out of nowhere to obstruct their path. These people stood in front of them, blocking their path. Ethan tried various tactics to get past them, like jumping, rolling and crawling, but nothing worked. He was determined to leave, but then 3 people showed up at their door, blocking their way out. Recognizing the futility of their attempts, they resigned themselves to rest, putting their trust in whoever was in control. They remained indoors, hoping that the source of the sound was being addressed. They wondered why they were being blocked from leaving their house. Ethan shared his thoughts about the sound and his opinion about people's shock. Annabel shared her opinion that the sound could be related to Marcus, yet they were not sure about why the pets were all transferred from Ethan's town to another. What could be the goal? Why are people in this state? And why were only Ethan, Annabel, and Marcus? Could Marcus be controlled by someone other than the one who is controlling everyone? Is it a fight between two higher dimension beings? A lot of questions, but none had an answer. In the evening, Ethan asked Emily, "Do you have to go?" He wished for his sister to stay, but she insisted on returning to her house. Annabel said, "I understand that you think of me as Emily, and you want me to stay with your family. But I need to get back to my family. They need me, especially in this situation. I still do not have any idea about the things happening around me, so please do not stop me." Ethan asked, "At least can I accompany you today to see the marvelous thing you saw at the place where Marcus danced weirdly?" Annabel was not ready to visit that marvelousness, especially after what she had seen it do to Marcus. So she politely refused. She said, "Oh, the marvelous thing happens only at midnight, but as I lost my sleep last night, I don't think I can make it today. I need to sleep to be able to walk tomorrow, and the bicycle ride to your place intensified my tiredness. Maybe tomorrow we can visit it if you are fine with it." Ethan was aware of what sleeplessness does to a person's mental and physical health. Considering his sister's well-being, he agreed with her. He was not planning on visiting the place alone that day, as he thought he might not know what to look for. Lost in thoughts about the mysterious sound and the enchanting place, he forgot to accompany his sister back to her town. He was confident that nothing bad would befall his sister, and even if it did, help would swiftly come her way. As Annabel was about to leave, Ethan, along with his parents, waved their hands and wished her a safe ride back. Ethan knew that the next day was going to be really long, so he went to bed earlier, happy with the thought that he found his sister.